Welcome to another edition of the Five Star Zone. Rico Beard, Howard Griffith. Howard, well, I mean, it's the talk of the Big Ten. It was a game that was played on Saturday night, but that's not what people are talking about right now.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's the after the game, what went on in the tunnel. Really, I got to tell you, man, it's no place for it, right? And as I described it this morning, it's really, one thing to have a rivalry and be going back and forth and talking trash and that sort of thing. But some of the things that I saw in video, and I haven't seen all the video, but when you start to use a helmet as a weapon, I mean, there's no room for that. And Coach Tucker I thought, did the right thing. He's moved swiftly with the suspensions. And, it's unfortunate that some young people are going to have to learn a hard lesson through this process because charges are going to be filed and people want some justice behind this.
But see that I guess, Howard, once you start talking about the charges being filed, I think you're taking this to a whole nother level because I go back because the Big Ten to me set the precedent about 8 months ago. We all saw the fight between the Michigan and Wisconsin basketball team. But they actually, they were out on the court. They were it was a fight. It was after the game. Players got the 1-game suspension. I think Juwan Howard was suspended for the rest of the year. But there was no charges being filed. It was more so we're going to leave this as an athletic thing. I think once you open that door and say, well, you now can get arrested if you do things, it's almost going to be like that pass interference call where it's going to be up to whoever sees it can see it a different way. Oh, you did this. Oh, you did that. Now, you're right. I saw the video was coming out and you're kind of piecemealing this thing together. The video that I've seen was the initial one with the state players when I think it was McBurrow and they throw him out the locker room. And that's with the 4 players. Then I saw the one with the player using the helmet. I actually think that the NFL set the precedent there with Myles Garrett. And Myles Garrett missed the rest of the year when he took off the helmet. But there were no charges that were filed. It was one of those, are you really going to go down that road? And I think that that's a very slippery slope. And then I saw the video of McBurrow. I think I'm saying his name right. But he went to start some trouble. Now, I'm not saying what he did justified anything that happened, but he left his teammates. He went around security, and he went skipping up the tunnel and got right in the middle of the Spartan players. And I saw that video, and I'm like, to me, there's so much that went wrong that night that hopefully maybe James Franklin was right. He did warn us a couple weeks ago. Some things could happen in the tunnel. Didn't know he was going to be that prophetic and that quickly.
Yeah, I'd say this, though, Rico. I think you saw the referees trying to, at least I remember seeing it specifically at the halftime and at the end of the game as well, where they tried to separate the team, let State go up the tunnel first. They were holding Michigan players back. You see the one player go around skipping up into the tunnel. And listen, I understand that, but he still didn't deserve what happened to him to happen.
Right. No. Right.
Yeah, and to me, that's where, I mean, I gotta be honest with you. I mean, if those were some of my family members, it would have been handled a little bit differently after the game. And because what's happened now is you brought the streets onto the football field. And there's no place for that. I mean, people have to be responsible for what they're doing. And again, you can talk all the trash you want to talk between the lines, in the tunnel, those things have happened. But once you start, swinging, kicking, swinging the helmets,
you've taken it to
you're way out of bounds with that one.
Yeah, you've taken it to a whole nother level now. And I look at it, and as I said, I've equated it to a video that we've all just recently saw, where it was the Draymond Green Jordan Poole, and it's like, guys, it was. You remember the Chappelle show when Keeping It Real goes wrong, and then they always say if they just would have stopped right here, it would have been cool. And people kept going and going and going. And you're right. Now, allegedly, Michigan has some security video in the tunnel that nobody has seen yet. I don't know what happened, but you're right. Tucker comes out, immediately suspends those guys, which he has to do because you have to set, some type of a discipline, because that's not the look that you want any of your players to ever have. But I simply say, when you start involving the authorities, and here's the other thing, if you're going to go that route, because it was in one video, then maybe, there was a state trooper standing right there. He was watching the whole thing. I didn't see a sense of urgency from him. He kind of looked like, well, these are football players doing football players thing. It wasn't with the helmet swinging, because once again, whoever that was some grainy footage. So I don't know exactly, but I know MSU does. Whoever that player is gone for the year. You could try to appeal your way back on the team next year, but that's, once you use the helmet as a weapon, you've now officially crossed the line. But I see the state trooper there, and I'm like, well, okay, well, I understand that Harbaugh wants justice, but I'm like, dude, if you go down this route, just be careful, because you are now opening up the door that the next time that there's any type of a skirmish, you've now involved legal folks. I think this is one where, kind of like when Michigan played Wisconsin, you let the coaches handle it, you let the conference handle it, you suspend the players, you shake hands, and you just move on.
Yeah, and from the basketball standpoint, I see it, but I think once the helmet gets involved, it's escalated, and it's really not Harbaugh that's pushing, for charges to be filed. I mean, he can look at it from after the game, and he can make the comment. I mean, you see that, then charges should be. But the family wants to move forward. And I think that's the route that they're deciding to go. So I don't think it's Jim Harbaugh trying
to. See, I took it from Harbaugh initially after the game, was like, we're going to file charges, word manual. So that's why I got that information.
Yeah, no. But that tells you, to me, it kind of tells you the footage that they have seen. Now, I hadn't seen that footage by the time they were, that they were talking about that as far as the helmet is concerned. But I just say this, at the end of the day, rivalries are great and they're fun, but it went too far, because it was not about the rivalry at that point. That was about some selfish individuals deciding that they wanted to get an upper hand in something that, should have been handled between the lines. And now it's being handled, in a tunnel or in a room. Yeah. And now it's almost like a mob mentality. So, Coach Tucker had to move quickly, because that's not who he is and who he wants his program to be, perceived at. And, I get it. People are talking about the tunnel and saying that this shouldn't have happened and he shouldn't have gone up the tunnel. But listen, that tunnel's been there for a long time, and these things have happened. I can remember when I was at Illinois, we go to Michigan State. Michigan State has a similar situation there, pushing back and forth in the tunnel, but it never escalated to where it got to what we saw Saturday night. And that's the part that I think really has a lot of people upset and frustrated. Yeah, Coach Franklin mentioned that last weekend or 2 weeks ago, but it still can't get to that. It can't get to a point where the streets are involved in a football game.
Howard, it goes back to what I said last week, and I don't know if I said it to you or if I just said it on the show, but I've said it many times, where this rivalry, Michigan State, it's one of my least favorite times of the year. I'm glad when it's over. I look at it like a root canal. I went to MSU. I graduated from MSU, full disclosure for anybody watching this for the first time. It's to the point whether Michigan State wins or loses, I just want it to be over, because it's gotten toxic. It's the only rivalry that I know that there's really no respect. Alabama, Auburn, they at least respect each other. Michigan, Ohio State, they respect each other. In this rivalry, there is zero respect. It is kind of taking on that street mentality. It never reached this point, and it never should have reached this point.
Right.
Which, they said that they brought in extra security, and it's just like, well, guys, this is the time where extra security needed to step up and do something and just separate the people and separate the teams, because there's a reason why, Howard, you are a football player. There's a reason why I like to say there's a cooling off period. You separate folks, because you may do something in that heat of the moment that 5 minutes later you're not going to do. But at that moment, you just lost. You're angry. A lot of, in my opinion, man, it was so many failures across the board that unfortunately, I think it's going to change how pregame and postgame things are going to be done, at least in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I can remember going back. I'm an old guy, but we were playing Colorado and Boulder, and one of the things we would do we started doing it at the coin snap, at the coin toss, is they have the captains go out, and he's like, "No, we're not going to do it that way. The whole team's going out." And yeah, we were trying to intimidate. That was what we were trying to do, but they quickly got rid of that stuff and say, hey, 4 people coming out, and that's the end of that, or whatever the number is right now. But I think things have to continue to change. Things have to continue to evolve. But again, I go back to it. I mean, teams have been crossing to go to opposite. They're on one sideline, the locker room's on the other. They've been crossing. This has been going on for decades. And yes, you have some of the things that go on. But I think the issue here is we have it on videotape, and now we're seeing it.
Right.
And that's part of what makes this.
I've often said there's new two types of crimes in this world. It's no longer white collar and blue collar. It's the things you see and the things you don't. When you see something, it takes it to a whole nother level. Once again, going back to the Jordan Poole, Draymond Green.
Mm-hmm.
At first, it went from 2 players got into a fight at practice, and it was no big deal.
Right.
Everybody shrugged it off. And then all of a sudden, it got a face. Like you go back to Ray Rice when he originally got suspended from the NFL. Well, he got into an altercation with his wife, and then you see him cold cock his wife.
Right.
Whoa, it's a little more than 2 games. He was done forever. So you're right. With the video that's coming out and more video, I've seen at least 3 clips now. Yeah, I don't know everything that happened, but yeah, Tucker had to come in there and act swiftly. It's going to be interesting to see what then happens to that next level. I'm taking away Michigan State because I know all the Michigan people right now hate watching me are going to say, well, of course you say that. Once you start involving the authorities, I think that's going to be a slippery slope that I don't think people want to go down that road. Now, once again, going after the player that hit you with the helmet, that's not even football related. That's not even whatever. You're right. You've now hit the streets. That's now a weapon that you use, and he's on his own. I don't know who that is, but whoever that person is, yeah, he's on his own. And if something happened, if you cause somebody damage, then yeah, you go after that. But to sit there and say you're going to go after the football players for the skirmish in that tunnel, non-helmet beatdown, that's why I think it's going to be a slippery slope, because now it's up to interpretation. Is a push enough for the cops to come in? Do you have to push somebody two-handed push? Do you have to swing? I just think that once you do this, it's no longer going to be about the sport. And now you almost have to have 2 separate places, like at Ohio State and at Penn State, where players just will never interact with each other. And the sad reality is, I think it's going to take away one of the things that I really like about college sports is after the game, when you see high school teammates meet up at midfield and take. So, Howard, I can't tell you how many photos I've taken of people right after the game saying, hey, come here. Hey, can you send this to me? And I think it's going to be gone, where at the end of the game, it's almost like you're going to have to bring out, the militia, the state troopers, and say, okay, you go, and we're going to sit here, and we're going to make sure that nobody leaves from the other side until that whole team is gone.
Yeah, I think what ultimately needs to happen is this is the pendulum has swung way to the other side, and I don't think we're going to see that type of behavior, moving forward. I don't think we'll see that, but it also heightens the awareness of programs that you got to make sure that you're making sure you're protecting your student athletes in whatever form and way you can do that. But again, I think institutions do an unbelievable job of taking care of the student athletes to begin with. What we had here were a few people who wanted to do things their own way and were only thinking about themselves and not thinking about the program and what the aftermath would look like. Because that's the tough part about this is that you go to college, and you go to college, you make mistakes, right? This is one of the things that happens. But in this day and age now, those mistakes are now caught on video. And I'm not trying to say hitting somebody with a helmet is a mild mistake. That's assault.
Yeah, that's the next level.
That's next level stuff.
Yeah,
pushing and shoving in a tunnel. Okay, we can get through that, but jumping on, hitting, stomping on, those are things that, man, there's just no.
That's almost gang-like mentality.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm gonna tell you something else, Rico. I've never understood this really. I've never understood why players on two different teams would have such hatred for one another just because of that's the way the quote-unquote rivalry has been built up. How are you going to hate somebody on the other side and they haven't done anything to you or your family members? I've never quite been able to wrap my mind around that type of mentality.
Do me a favor. Ask me that question tomorrow and I can answer it, because I promise you this, like it or not, October 21st, before that game, the media they're going to stir up that chili pot.
Yep.
They can bring back all of these old feelings. The wound will be healed, but now you're going to see, if you're Michigan players, you're going to see your boy get attacked. If you're state players, you're going to see, all the suspensions and stuff. And you're going to be like, you know what? He shouldn't have been there. Like I said, this rivalry is the only rivalry in college football that I do believe has zero respect for anybody.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, because with respect, I don't like you on the field, but once we're off the field, we're good. But here, and I mean, it kind of goes back to the whole little brother thing. And then Blake Corum tried to add a new element to it when he walked into there. This is where the hate comes from. It is a toxic thing. And honestly, if it were me, if I'm the Big Ten, you know what, guys, maybe you two don't play each other for a couple of years. Maybe you'll then appreciate this rivalry. Maybe you two sit this out for 2 years. We'll swap 2 more teams in there, because you haven't earned the right to do this anymore, because you guys have taken this to a whole nother level. And maybe we take a step back and see and come up and so that there can be an appreciation, so that there can be some respect. Now, I know that's draconian and it's like, whoa, you're going too far. But think about it. I promise you, if you're a gambling man, I would promise you in the first quarter of next year's game, over under at least 1.5 personal foul penalties. The refs are going to have to step in there immediately and say, guys, we're not doing this in this game, because they're going to see all of this stuff. Because
right.
It's the beauty of it is, in Chicago, I don't know how much you see, but man, it's from the trouble with the snap to little brother to all the stuff.
Yeah.
And it's almost like you antagonize these kids. So they weren't around all of these years,
right,
but they see it and they hear it from the fans at the grocery store, your next door neighbor, your coworker, everything. So that's just how I see it. Ask me that tomorrow, Howard.
All right. For sure. We'll get back to it.
Okay. All right. Anything else, Howard, before we wrap it up?
No, I think we're good.
All right. So for Howard Griffith, Rico Beard, thanks for watching the 5-Star Zone. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll expand upon this a little bit more. But this, with all the news coming down today, with Mel Tucker suspending 4 players, we felt the need to jump in here and give you our perspective. We'll be back tomorrow.